Welcome to Fast and Hard with your hosts, Coach Matt Tyner and Will Pritchard.
Welcome, everybody. It's great to be back. It was a long trip this past weekend. We got in at 5 a.m. this morning. So you'll be hearing this a couple days later, but it was an interesting arrival here back at BWI. A couple bags got left off the plane, Will, and put us in really, really early. I didn't know if I should go to bed or just come on in, but being an old dude, I had to go take a couple nippy naps. You look a lot better than I do today. Fellas, ladies and gentlemen, we probably have the best lineup today. We got Michael Melnik going deep into detail on communication, one of the energized approaches, top dog energy sources. If we all can't get better communicating, then what are we trying, to do here? I know myself, I listen to this particular source definition day in and day out because it's so important. The gap, between me and my players in regard to age is so wide that I've got to do as best a job as I possibly can when it comes to communication. So I suggest you listen to this one. This is a good one. And it leads right into my follow-up from this past weekend at LSU and Southern. But most importantly, it's going to take us to two special guest interviews that when we were done with both of these, Will and I looked at each other and said, wow, that's just personal interest. It's just phenomenal. Our first guest is Dan Simonds, and Dan used to be the head coach at Miami of Ohio, and he, after a long and illustrious career, decided to make a change and relocated to the state of Florida and is now the director of baseball operations at IMG Academy. And when Dan started, they had 200 athletes there. Now they've got over 1,200. And he paints and portrays a picture of the leading athletic academy in the world. I mean, and it's phenomenal. It's a short interview. It only runs about 15 minutes, Will, but my, oh my, is it action-packed? And the picture he paints is just unbelievable. I hope you listen to that one because it is a good one. And then we just had the opportunity of our lifetime to interview the head baseball coach at the College of Charleston, Chad Holbrook. Now, Chad's been around for a long, long time, played baseball at the University of North Carolina. He's always been involved at the Power 5 level. And that perspective, for a lot of you, you've never been there. So he paints an unbelievable picture of what it was like as a player, what it was like as an assistant coach, what it was like as a head coach at the University of South Carolina, coaching for his mentor, who had moved on to the athletic director's position. And then he also shares with us what it was like being let go. And now he is at the right place for himself. He loves Charleston, and he just gives us a couple life lessons. He goes into detail about his son's sickness as a young 2-year-old that, I didn't know anything about. And man, oh man, I let him go. And that's why we're only having 2 guests on today, along with Michael Melnik, because in this baseball conversational podcast, I don't want to cut anybody short when they have a compelling story that just rivets you when you're listening to it. So sit back, relax, end the podcast with Chad Holbrook, and you'll be very happy that you did. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy this particular podcast because I think it's the best one we've had. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This is Matt Tyner again, and we're pleased to have Michael Melnik come back and go through another of one of the energy sources for the energized approach. This week, we're going to discuss, and he's going to go deeper into detail regarding the source communication. And I don't know about you, but I've often thought I was a pretty good communicator, and my biggest fan was my wife. unfortunately, she was also my most critical fan. Will, she used to bring my feet back to the fire all the time when I thought I would be able to communicate to our children or to my siblings or anything. You know, she'd be like, do you understand what it sounds like when you're saying what you're saying? You know, you old gruff old boy, you need to soften up just a little bit and understand that. So having had a relationship with Michael and watching him work, I've certainly learned from the master, and I think we're going to do something a little bit different. This particular source is so important that we get a chance to kind of understand where he's coming from, that I'm going to start it like I am right now. But when I turn it over to him, I'm going to let him run from start to finish. You know, I'm going to ask him maybe one or two questions throughout the course of the discussion, but otherwise he's going to have full reign with the source communication. And I just think it's that important to hear his side of it. And then at the end, I'll summarize and kind of pop back in there. But I've listened to this before. Obviously, I've been upfront and personal. I've been in the audience. And I just think it's one that you'll find most appealing to you. And you may even take a nugget home with you. So without further ado, let me bring back as our guest Michael Melnik from the Energized Approach, talking today about communication. So Michael, it's all yours.
Hello again, Matthew, and everyone else. Thanks for joining us. Happy to be back again. So we're talking about communication, and this is one of my personal favorites, and I think it's really because it is so huge. And I'm a public speaker, so I'm out communicating with folks all the time, and it just plays a huge role in my life, both professionally and personally. But in actuality, it's such a huge energy source because it plays a huge aspect in everyone's life. Because even if we sit there and say we're not a good communicator, and some people will say that, that doesn't mean they're not communicating. It's happening all the time. It just maybe means they're not able to do it in a way that is most effective for them. So let's just talk a little bit about the influence it is, or the influence it has, how important it is, and what we can do to really take advantage of the power of communication and try to use it in a way that is most effective for what we're trying to achieve.
Well, that's a good thing, Mike, because from a coaching perspective, obviously I want my words to be heard and understood, just like from a professional speaking aspect, you want your words to be heard and understood. And I would imagine our audience that's listening to us right now, they are probably saying the same thing. From a parent, I'd like for my words to be heard and understood. From a spouse, in a relationship, when I'm working, as a manager, all of those things are going to come into play here. And I can't thank you enough for kind of walking us through this so that, we get a better understanding on maybe how to project. So take us down that path, Michael.
I think one of the most important things to remember about communication is that we're never not communicating, right? So if we are using words, which is the most typical way that we do it, we are communicating. But think of all the times when using silence has actually communicated something to someone. So now imagine that you're in a coaching situation and something happens out on the field and everybody runs back into the dugout and the coach just sits there and isn't speaking to anyone. That is speaking volumes. That is communicating volumes. It's like, why isn't he or she saying anything? So it's not like you could sit there and go, well, you know what? I'm feeling this but I'm not going to tell anybody. Well, guess what? By not speaking, you're sending a message. Who knows at that point what it is, because it's going to be open for interpretation. But imagine every time you assume a posture, every time you use a facial expression, every time you turn your back, rather than stay engaged. All of those things are moments of communication. The question now is it sending an accurate message? Is it sending the message that you'd like to be sent? And then is it being interpreted the way that you had hoped?
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I've worked for a number of head coaches throughout the course of my career, and I would always remind them that, hey, if and when something bad happens on the field, which we all know it will, what's your reaction at? Because as soon as it happens, everybody on this bench is going to turn their head and they're going to look right at you to see your reaction. And if your head goes down, if a expletive comes out of your mouth, it's not going to be a good thing, because then it's all about now, how do you fix it? So, as I've shared that with the head coaches, now that I've come into my own head coaching position, I often have to watch and remember exactly what I look like when that bad thing happens as well.
So this is where, again, communication gets really, I don't want to say complicated, but it gets at least interesting as far as I see it. Some people say it's more frustrating than it is interesting, but I like to call it interesting because it's not what you say, it's not what you do, it's how that is seen or heard by the person or people that you are trying to communicate with. And this again is really fun. I'll give you a quick story here. I'm a public speaker, so I'm used to being in front of audiences. I've been doing this for about 30 years. So over the years, I've really developed the skill to know my content really well. And that means I can focus on my audience while I'm speaking. And I can be looking at postures, and are they sitting there kind of looking stern with their arms crossed? Are they looking relaxed? Do they look like they're engaged? Do they look like they're thinking about something else other than what I'm saying? So what I'm actually doing as I'm speaking is I'm doing an energy assessment on communication while I'm speaking. And that means I'm kind of taking the pulse or taking the temperature of my audience so that I can modify my communication as I'm speaking to make sure that I'm getting the outcome and results that I'm actually looking for. So what I'm really sharing with you is the idea of, as you are saying what you want to say, as you are communicating what you're wanting to communicate, are you also paying attention to at least your perception of how it's being heard, right? I mean, a lot of us can remember as parents, where we're saying to our child, you've got to wear your helmet when you ride your bike, or go clean up your room, and those types of things. And then part of the way through that discussion, we're looking at the child and we're going, are you listening to me? Because what we're doing at that moment in time is we're doing an energy assessment. And we're picking up cues that tell us that what we are saying quite possibly is not what's being heard. So I think particularly in times when we're angry, times when we're frustrated, we tend to just send out the message that we want to deliver of anger or frustration. And what we're not doing is, because we're angry, we're not paying attention to the energy that we're receiving back that tells us how it's being heard. One of the reasons this is so important is when you think about things like a situation where a player, let's say, might think that the coach or their teammates are disappointed, or they're angry, or they're frustrated. And so they're sensitive to receiving or interpreting the communication in a way that reinforces, oh, they're mad at me, or they're disappointed, or I should have done better, or whatever. And if the right, I don't want to say the right, but if the words aren't used, if the postures aren't used that break that, in other words, being able to see that this is a situation where somebody might think I'm disappointed or whatever, it's so important that we are using the words or the postures that interrupt that pattern. In other words, it's very important for you to know right now, I may look like I'm frustrated. I may look like I'm disappointed. I know you gave it your all, but I want you to know that I'm aware. I'm aware of what the effort was. And yeah, am I disappointed with the outcome or whatever, but I'm not disappointed, with you specifically. Those types of things, if they go unsaid, then people sometimes walk away from those situations with an emotion, with a feeling, with an outcome that is not what our intention was. And so, again, paying attention to what we say and the postures we assume or the expressions we use is certainly important, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be paying attention to our audience, whether it's a spouse or a loved one or a friend or one of our players or an assistant coach or whoever it might be. We don't want to be all the time going, did I communicate that effectively to you? But we oftentimes will get cues from people, and maybe you've done this as well. Let's say you're in a discussion with someone, and all of a sudden they start to back away, or all of a sudden they start to get a little defensive. Those cues in communication give us the ability to then also take a step back and go, whoa. It looks like you might be misunderstanding what I'm saying, or let me repeat that, but let me do it differently. Or the person might say to us, you look defensive, when you said that, and you're like, I'm really sorry. Let me loosen up a little bit here, and let me try to say that differently.
That's exactly a good point that you bring up right there, because sometimes when I'm communicating, they kid me and they call it Psycho Matt's coming out of the closet. So I do have to look at my audience. I do have to read the audience so that I can soften the blow of the communication that I'm putting down. Because if they're not picking up what I'm putting down, then it's not working. And being able to have worked with you in the past has given me an opportunity to become more and more aware of not only what I say, but how I say it.
And those situations are happening all day, every day. They're either doing it in our awareness or they're doing it outside of our awareness. And then we find out maybe later in the day, or sometimes you find out maybe even months or years later of going, when we had that one discussion, I thought you were mad at me, or I thought you were disappointed, or whatever it might be. So it's really just about really making sure that ideally we use the words that actually convey the emotion that we're feeling. How many of the people that are listening right now are in families where there are numerous things that go unsaid? So somebody gets in an argument, and what the argument leads to is the silent treatment, right? Well, like it or not, that's communication, right? What it's saying is, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to confront these emotions. It could be that I don't have the words to confront it. It doesn't mean that it's made the issue go away. It just means neither one of us really want to talk about it. Neither one of us want to process this. And then it just kind of festers a little bit. So I know it's hard to do, and I don't want to make it sound like it's easy. But it's really important if you are feeling an emotion that you really are hoping to convey to a player, to an assistant coach, to another coach, to a family member or friend, as much as possible, trying to find the words that actually describe it, so that regardless of what your posture is, regardless of what your expressions are, you can kind of feel comfortable knowing that the emotion and the feeling has been conveyed. And really, the other piece that's so important in this is, and again, I've had to work really hard on this as a speaker, is it is not what I say. I mean, obviously, the words that I use and the principles that I convey certainly are important, but it's quite possible that it's being misinterpreted, it's being misunderstood, it's being misheard, it's being not heard at all. All of those things. I could walk away from a presentation and go, oh my gosh, I was amazing. And then the person that I was talking to could walk away going, I don't get it, or I was offended, or whatever it would be. And that's really where the value of critiques come in, after a presentation, is it gives me the feedback that I'm looking for to go, wow, I really need to reevaluate my presentation, because that's not at all what I was trying to convey, or it was exactly what I was trying to convey. And so I need to do more of that because it made its point.
Okay, I understand that. And I'll tell you what, from my perspective, there have been a couple times where I have separated the group and put pitchers on one side and hitters on the other side, and actually gone and spoken with them one on whatever, 15 or 20, and had an opportunity for a little input from those guys regarding my communication skills. And you're right. I have left there a little bit more aware of where the breakdown may be or where I'm doing okay. And having that opportunity to ask is something I think that would be much better served in relationships. I know that, in Laura and I, in her last couple of years, I think I did a better job of asking her, hey, do you understand what I'm saying? Or did that come out right? Or and saying it with a caring tone and a wanting look rather than, once again, Psycho Matt popping out of the closet. If you really want to be a better communicator, then I think there is an emphasis put on not just what is said, but what you look like when you say it. So, keep going, Mike. Tell us a little bit more.
So, surveying your audience, doing what I call an energy assessment, and this is true with all the energy sources that I talk about, is really, really important. You may have relationships with some other coaches or with some of your players where you even have the ability to check in and pull them aside and go, we just had that talk about, after our loss or even after our victory or whatever it might be. And this is really what I was trying to convey. Did that come across? And having another person who you trust say, in the beginning, I wasn't really sure where you were coming from, or, I actually thought you were okay with what went on, and now what I'm hearing from you is not so much. That kind of feedback, however you're able to get it, is kind of a bit of a roadmap. It gives us an outside opinion, because as I'm speaking to you right now, I can't see you. I don't know who's listening. I don't know if you're rolling your eyes. I don't know if you're engaged. And so in the absence of feedback, man, I think I'm doing an amazing job, right? I could be so far off on how things are going and how this sounds to you. And the feedback is critical. So relying on your own energy assessment, I'm just going to tell you from experience, and my own experiences, they're not always on target. So finding those in your world that you trust to give you some feedback on how your communication is being heard and interpreted is really, really important. So just in conclusion, I would just say communication, as long as you recognize that it is never not happening, right? Now, it doesn't mean that strong and powerful messages are always being sent, but it does mean that communication at some level is always happening, right? Because even if you're not engaged and there's nothing really going on, then the communication that is often being sent is everything's fine. Everything's fine. We're going about our business. We've got other, things going on, and there's nothing happening right now that is elevating the energy to a point where we need to stop and address it. That is not the absence of communication. That's just communication that's saying, everything's cool. And then we raise it in a positive direction. If there's something we want to do of saying, hey, great job, or that was awesome, or appreciate you, or whatever it would be. Or it can go in a negative direction, right? Of what the heck were you thinking, or why did you do that, or whatever it would be. But it's never at zero. It's just different levels of positive, of negative, hovering around neutral, which is probably where we spend most of our day. But certainly, just in conclusion here, certainly when you are focusing in on going, I now am really trying to drive a message, right? That where you really look at using the words that best describe, to your ability. Don't rely on postures. Don't just rely on facial expressions. Those can often be misinterpreted. Trying to find the words that you really want to use. And then as you're doing it, really doing an energy assessment of your audience to see if what you're saying and what you're trying to express looks to be what they are hearing and generating the emotion that you are looking to generate in those situations.
So let me just make sure that, I kind of close this baby up with you. I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I hope our audience does too, because it is really, you said this a long, long time ago. It really doesn't matter what you say if your audience doesn't receive it the way you implied it. And that has stuck with me forever. And and I'm looking at Will right now going, if you had a report card, would you give us an A on this, a B, a C, a D, or God forbid an F, in regard to trying to explain communication and how important it is? And I get it. And I'm sure our audience does too. And I think the goal of today's discussion was to have each and everybody take a step back and just look at it. And Will's head's bobbing right now, so he's getting it. And just for a little bit of time, think about how you communicate. And can your words come out softer? Can they be chosen better? Can they define the subject matter that you're talking about more colorful? Can you paint a picture? Can you do all of those things that are going to trigger somebody's learning opportunities and abilities when you discuss? And if you can do that, I think that's what Michael Melnik's energized approach and the energized source of communication can do for you. Thanks, Michael.
Matthew, thanks again for the opportunity to share this information. Hope it's helpful, and thank everybody. Thanks all of you for listening. I'm without your feedback, without being able to see your faces, hard to do an energy assessment. So I'm going to hope this one, hit the mark. And thanks much. Take care.
We'll be back with you in just a second, but right now, a little word from our sponsor. Hey, well, it looks like we've got a new sponsor, and the Jungle Cat would like to thank the fine team at Capital Seaboard, the top distributor of fresh produce and seafood in the Mid-Atlantic region. Capital services the top chefs in restaurants, hotels, caterers, and kitchens from Philly to Richmond. They're a chef-driven, highest in quality company, proudly serving the region with over 90 vehicles delivering 6 days a week. And thanks very much for that sample of lump crab meat. Can't wait to dive into that after tonight's show. What do you think, Will? You ready to try some?
I'm ready.
Great. Well, thanks again to the people at Capital Seaboard for their fine and continued sponsorship.
All right. So, Coach Tyner, tell us about this weekend, Southern and LSU.
Well, it's the tale of two cities, Will. And it was an interesting and very, very, it has to be a rewarding experience for our guys. Because first and foremost, I have been to Alex Box Stadium before, but I've never been there when there's been fans in the stands. It is the mecca of college baseball. There's just no other way to put it that way. It's just unreal. All in, they can get about 13.5 in the stadium, and we just had terrible weather. I mean, it was 46, 47 degrees at game time. And I guess I should back up and say they had terrible weather. If it was 47 here in Baltimore, we'd be playing and be happy. But on Friday, even for the Southern game, there were probably 1,500, 2,000 people there. And then they cleared the stadium and then brought fans back for the LSU Towson game that Friday night. And there was 9,000 people there. So, and that's with Mardi Gras going on same weekend. Well, I know it freaked us out too. And there's fans everywhere. I mean, there's fans behind your right fielder. There's fans behind your left fielder. They're all the way down. They're behind. It's a covered grandstand. It's like you're in Yankee Stadium. And you know what? That's probably a great analogy. LSU's Alex Box Stadium, Skip Bertman Field, is just like playing at Yankee Stadium if you were in the big leagues. That's how nice it is. And from the people on the field to the hostesses, to the hosts, to the ushers, to the, it was just like we were some kind of royalty, and they treated us like kings. Maybe they were just trying to fatten us up before the kill, But nonetheless, it was a great experience. And then from a playing perspective, it made it very attractive to schedule LSU and Southern. And I'm not taking anything away from Southern University. They're a good baseball team. But when I personally looked at those two games on the schedule, I said, those are two games that we should win. And that made it palatable to go out there. And then you're kind of playing with house money, you know what I mean? So if we got a good outing on the mound on Friday and we were able to play clean baseball and, hit it a little bit, then we would have a chance maybe to put one in the win column. And that would have our spirits high, and then we would go against LSU that night and bring all we got. And that's exactly what happened. Nate Nabholz gave us a great game on the mound, and then the relief came in behind him and was very, very solid. Jake Pecalunas set the school record for appearances, and he got himself a nice save. Nolan Young got off at the plate. It was just a great way to start our trip with that victory that night. And I think it put us in a great mindset of like, okay, we've been here, we've tested the field, we've seen the fan base, we understand what it's going to be like. It's going to be probably a little more raucous. And then, let's get into the game flow against LSU. And I don't know if you watched the game or not, but they scored in the first 3 innings, and then we shut them out. And I say that was kind of one of those moral victories. I tell them each time that we play, there are 4 things that can happen in a game. You can win and play good, you can lose and play good, you can win and play bad, and you can lose and play bad. Well, I'll take 3 out of those 4, and so will they. It's just when we lose and we play bad that we don't want that to happen over and over and over again. So even though we lost, I thought we played good. I thought we played competitive. We didn't let it get out of hand. We minimized, we made some good plays. We made some good pitches, and we battled at the plate. So that was really, really good to see. Then we had the full day off on Saturday, and we were going to play Southern that night. Now, Southern had the doubleheader that day. So they got locked in with LSU in a dogfight. It was 2-1 in the 6th. And then LSU blew them out after their starter went out and kind of went from there. So we couldn't have gotten them at a better time. They were deflated. They were down. They probably didn't even want to play that night. So we took full advantage of it. And we beat them 11-1. That was the coming out party for Elijah Dickerson. We made a position change for him, put him at first base. He feels pretty comfortable there rather than the outfield. Maybe it settled him down offensively. He had played first base all summer, so it just made sense for us to give him a shot, and that was a good game to give him a shot at. Well, he responded with 2 home runs, and to be quite honest with you, I can't remember the last Towson player to hit 2 home runs in a single game. So, kudos to him. He had a great day, and we go from there. And then sitting there with 2 wins and 1 losses, we're believing we're playing with house money. And on Sunday, we jump out to a 1-0 lead in the second when Nolan Young goes oppo taco into the right field bleachers. And okay, now we're thinking we got it, right? Well, LSU kind of flexed their muscles a little bit then. And let me tell you, when they flex, they're something. They are special. And I think my players would agree. They can hit the baseball. We left there saying, you know what? If you combined, and this is nothing, we're not taking away anything from LSU's pitching staff. They're pretty good. They threw a 1-hitter yesterday, so not bad at all. But we were just so impressed with the Miami pitching staff. 94, 96, 98, 95, 98, 97, 98, all weekend long, that when we saw somebody 90, 92, it just, from that perspective of it, Miami's pitching staff was impressive, very, very impressive, and so is LSU's. But if you combine those two, holy cow, you would have some kind of team going right there. But LSU's pitching staff, high spin rate fastballs, that just almost elevate. it doesn't need the vertical downhill run that most pitchers look for. It can be thrown flat, and we just couldn't touch it. It just at that last bit as it crosses the plate, it's got that little giddy up on it, and a lot of our guys were just missing it. And that's the mark of a good pitcher when you've got something like that. There's a reason why they're ranked in the top 10, and it is truly an interesting opportunity to go down there and see those guys play. I can only imagine what a SEC weekend looks like down there. It's got to be like the Red Sox playing the Yankees. So kudos to LSU for hosting us. Coach Johnson, certainly a top shelf, just one of the best individuals I've ever met. And obviously there at the end, my mentor, my assistant coach from the University of Miami, and the guy that the field is named after, Skip Bertman, came down and spent a little time with my players. And it almost brought tears to my eyes as I was standing there going, you guys, you probably don't even know who you're really listening to, but I think they did. And, you're talking about a first ballot Hall of Fame baseball coach at the NCAA level. And he's just a baseball, professor. And so good for him to come down there. And it was so funny because as he was closing, he said, okay, so, there's 4 things that can happen in a baseball game. And all of my guys, once he said you can win and play good, and you can win and play bad, all of my guys had a big grin on their face, ear to ear, going, oh my God, we see where Tyner gets this one, So that line has been used for over 40 years, Will. And it was special for them to hear it out of the author's mouth, at least for me. And I think we can leave there going, all right, LSU, if you could visually see this, sports fans, one hand's about 12 inches above the other, is up here, and Towson is down here. But Southern right there with us picked to win that SWAC. We defeated a pretty good Southern team, and I think we beat them handily. So I believe this week will give us a little bit better indication of where we are. We played George Washington on Tuesday, and then we leave on Thursday to go play UNC Greensboro, which is a very, very good team and a very, very good conference. Their RPI for their conference last year was 9. Our conference was 13. So by and large, the teams in that conference played a much tougher schedule, won a lot more games, and consequently, it's going to be a dogfight. Now, we switched to 3 games, which is going to help us considerably because our pitching won't be as thin. But we got to get the bats going. We got to get the bats on track. I fully anticipated the hitters helping us a little bit more than they currently are right now. So looking for some good things out this week. And hopefully we'll have that fan following that we have had the first 2 weekends. Guys, I don't know how to thank you. You've been with us to Miami. A few of you got lucky and stopped by the Mardi Gras, and then you came to Baton Rouge. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you very much for making us feel at home in both of those venues. Look forward to seeing you in Greensboro this week. Let's get this baby rolling. Go Tigers. Thanks, Will, for asking about the update. We'll talk to you next week. We'll be back with you in just a second. But right now, a little word from our sponsor. This segment's brought to you by Towson alum Chris Russ, your real estate specialist. You can find Chris at chrisruss.com or call him at 410-908-7723. Chris specializes and takes great pride in helping others relocate to new towns, as he once did over a dozen times while pursuing his dream to play Major League Baseball with the Texas Rangers. With many buyers flooding the area due to the great schools, strong job economy, and a robust defense industry, Chris has teamed up with lenders that specialize in VA loans and a home inspector that served our military proudly. Whether you are looking to commute to Howard County, Fort Meade, Baltimore, Bethesda, or Washington, D.C., Chris is familiar with the communities and the commuter locations that will serve you best. That's Chris Russ at chrisruss.com, 410-908-7723. 7723. Another proud TU alum. That's Chris Russ at chrisruss.com, your real estate specialist. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is a special friend of mine. I've had an opportunity to meet, work with, coach against, all of the above. I first met him as the head coach at Miami University in Southwest Ohio. His name is Dan Simonds, and he is now the director of baseball at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. Welcome to our show, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well. Really appreciate you having me. And as that introduction, we do go back a little ways, back to my days when I was at Miami. So, no, I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. And I think you bring a certain dynamic to the show that really helps us categorize special guests. As a former college baseball player, a professional baseball player, a collegiate coach, a professional instructor, a professional coach, and then all of a sudden you go, no, you know what? I'm going to go run the #1 baseball academy in the world. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a special place for those people that don't know about it. And for you to say thanks to coming on our show, man, I am humbled, dude. Humbled.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And, to be perfectly honest with you, I feel like a lot of those roles kind of prepared me for the current position that I'm in. Whether the number of years that I, had the opportunity to spend at the professional level and then transitioning into the college game and then ultimately, running the baseball side of things here at the academy. I feel, like I said, a lot of those experiences kind of prepared me for what I'm doing now. So, but I appreciate that, and it's been, it brings its own set of challenges, with working at the academy. But I love every minute of it. I certainly enjoy the people that I get to work with every day, and most importantly, the kids. To see their development, to help them, achieve the things that they set out to do in the game of baseball, to extend their careers. Potentially give them the opportunities to play at the collegiate level, or even for some, to play at the professional level. So it's very rewarding in that sense, and something that I have definitely enjoyed, for the last 8 years being at the academy.
Sure. Originally from Boston, Massachusetts, went to school at Davidson College. How did that happen back then?
Yeah, funny. I never would have thought I would have ended up in Davidson, North Carolina, right outside of Charlotte, growing up in the Boston area. Moved to the Cape my freshman year of high school, and one of the Cape Cod League coaches, the head coach at Katuitt in the Cape League, got the chance to scout me or evaluate me while I was playing at Barnstable High School, and was recruited by a couple schools in the Northeast and one school in the South, Florida Southern, and then Davidson out of North Carolina came out and visited the school, fell in love with it, felt like it was an opportunity for me to step in and play right away, at a smaller Division I school, but fit what I was looking for, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Yeah, fantastic. What did you study when you were there?
History.
Okay.
Yeah, I studied history while I was at Davidson, and had some aspirations of maybe going on to either being a teacher or potentially law school, but I was fortunate to get drafted in 1987, and that kind of paved my way for a career in baseball.
7th or 8th round?
7th round.
Seventh
round by the Baltimore Orioles.
Outstanding. Yeah, so you parlayed that career as a catcher, correct?
I was, correct. Yeah, a brief amount of time, they tried to convert me into a pitcher towards the end of my career, but predominantly I was a catcher through the time that I played in the minor leagues.
Okay. So then you spend a little bit of time in the minor leagues with Baltimore, and somehow you get relocated to the Midwest. How did that happen?
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I had spent years, with the Orioles, playing in Miami, Hagerstown, Maryland, Frederick, Maryland, and then was acquired as a free agent by the Cubs. And the Cubs sent me to, Winston-Salem, which I spent a little time in Winston-Salem, Peoria, and then ultimately I was in Des Moines. and Charlotte, North Carolina. So funny how it all worked out, but I ended up spending a number of years in the Midwest. And then in my time with the Cubs, once they felt like, hey, maybe my playing days were coming to an end, I was fortunate where they offered me the major league bullpen catching job. So that kind of transitioned me from the baseball side of things into the coaching side, and really had an opportunity to learn under some great baseball minds in my 3 years as the bullpen catcher at the major league level.
No kidding. I did not know that. And me being a lifelong Cub fan, now I can add you to my list. I definitely want an autographed baseball. My gosh.
Well, those days I certainly wasn't making the money of a Ryan Sandberg or a Mark Grace, but I will tell you I enjoyed every single minute of it. And as I said, I learned from some great people, and guys like Jim Lefevre and Tom Trebelhorn and Billy Connors, and I can go right down the list. But it was just a great experience. Not something I would want to do for the rest of my life, but it really helped me in terms of coaching and preparing me to coach in the minor leagues, and very, very fortunate that I had the opportunity to do that.
Dan, you're not going to believe this, but I'm staring at a panoramic picture of Wrigley Field from opening night, 8/8/88. So that's how big of a Cub fan I am.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I was there 92 to 94. So I was in there, some of the lean years. They certainly turned it around there, and it was nice to see them win a World Series. But, it was just a great atmosphere day in and day out, getting to go to work there at Wrigley Field, certainly traveling on the road and getting to experience, kind of the big league lifestyle. Got to be around some great baseball players, and catching Greg Maddux, and then certainly seeing a Sandberg and Grace, some of the Andre Dawson and Sammy Sosa. It was fun to watch these guys play day in and day out.
I bet that is, and see, that's just, you'll only find that out if you listen to this Fast and Hard podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Those things are not written about him. Trust me, because I tried to find all the background info I could on him. So from there, then how did you jump into college baseball?
Yeah, I just felt like, the McDonald's, I was in the minor leagues, so I was with the Padres for a few years. I managed in, Fort Wayne, and spent a couple of years in Clinton, Iowa as a hitting coach, bench coach there, and just felt like eating, McDonald's and living out of a bus, and just the lifestyle got to me a little bit. I figured that I'd pursue the college game, and one of my former teammates was the head coach at Miami of Ohio. He was an alumni of Miami of Ohio, and he had for 2 or 3 years tried to convince me to get into the college game, that it would give me a little better balance in my life. And I ultimately decided to leave the professional game and see what college baseball would be like. So I took a job as an assistant coach under him. His name is Tracy Smith, and Tracy went on to have a tremendous career. He was at Indiana University and then ultimately ended up at Arizona State. But he gave me the opportunity to be as an assistant, and spent 5 years there as an assistant. Became the head coach at Xavier for 1 year when I left, and then went back to Miami once Tracy went to Indiana, and became the head coach there for the next 8 years.
I think you guys at one time had the best coaching trilogy, probably in if not in Division I, pretty close to it, with Tracy Smith, Dan Simonds, and Scott Goggins.
Yeah, yes. It's funny because you're right. We all three were together for multiple years here. I think 4 years together at Miami. And Googs replaced me when I left Xavier as the head coach, and he had a tremendous run at Xavier and then went on to UC. And Tracy, certainly his success at IU, going to the College World Series, and then, kind of parlay that into his job at Arizona State. So, yeah, it was a great staff, guys that I'm still very, very close with to this day. I have the utmost respect for both of them, and very, very proud of what they've accomplished in the game.
So then you have a nice assistant coaching run, 2000, 2004. Then you take over the Miami, or right after your Xavier 1 year run, then you go right back to Miami University, and you're the head coach there for 2005 to 2013. You've got some great teams. just a juggernaut offensively, obviously, and then you have a fork in the road. You know, you decide you're going to try something new, and it leads you to IMG. Just talk to us about what you were thinking and why you chose IMG.
Yeah, it was peculiar. I really didn't think that I would ever leave the college game because I really enjoyed it. My wife and I always wanted to live in Florida, in particular in the Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch area, and felt like when this opportunity came up, they approached me about the job, and at first I said, listen, I just got to scratch the itch. I got to see what it's all about down there, and I was familiar with IMG. We used to bring our teams down when I was at Miami when they did a lot of the college preseason games, and a lot of the northern schools would come down and play, and IMG would host a lot of those schools. So, I came down and I listened to them, and I saw kind of the vision, and I also got pretty excited about some of the potential things that I could do, if given this opportunity. And, one thing led to another, whereas at first it was just kind of to go down and to check the waters, to test it out a little bit. And then they offered me the job, and I just felt at that time that as tough as it was to leave college baseball, that this was a new adventure. This was something that was going to be very, very different than anything I've ever done. But as I had mentioned before, it felt like a lot of ways that what I had done in the game, that it prepared me for this. And then, again, I thought it would give me a little better balance in my lifestyle, as far as having a young girl, being around her a lot more, not going on the road, constantly recruiting, being with my wife a lot more, and just give me a better balance in my life. And ultimately decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give this a shot. It was a roll of the dice, but it's ended up working out okay.
Well, for those of you that don't know, I had an opportunity to go down and talk with Dan a little bit about a potential opportunity, and it never did come to fruition, which was probably good because I don't think I would ever have gotten this opportunity. But on the flip side of it, I have been able to witness what has been going on down there, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, you guys you've increased the number of fields, correct?
We have, yeah. Over when I first got here back in 2013, we had 3 fields. We're up to 6 now. We're going to add 2 additional fields this upcoming summer to make a total of 8. We started with 75 players and 4 teams. We're up to 220 with 12 teams. So we've had considerable growth. Staff of 9 or 10. We're now up to about 32 coaches and various, guys with different levels of experience. We've got guys with collegiate experience, a guy like Joe Giordano or Bob Harold that spent a number of years at the Division I level. A guy like Dave Turgeon that was at Virginia Tech, Duke, spent a number of years at Boston College and UConn, and most recently the last 8 years with the Pittsburgh Pirates. A guy like our field coordinator, John Russell, who's the former manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So we've got a lot of guys with different levels of experience, but I think that's what makes it so enjoyable for our kids, that they work with coaches that not only have played and coached maybe at the collegiate or professional level, but also guys that can really, really connect with them as individuals and help them in their growth.
Outstanding. I mean, it is unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're ever traveling down into the Bradenton area and you have a moment and you can spend maybe an hour, just take a look at the campus, go in as a visitor. I think they may let you in. You got to see it. It is started as Bollettieri School of Tennis, right? And then it has just evolved into something that is top shelf, first class, all of the above. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it really did start with Nick Bollettieri, and he's really the reason we're all here. Starting off, and certainly trained some of the best tennis players in the world, and Andre Agassi and Coria, and you can go right down the list. Sharapova, a lot of your top tennis players came through IMG. Little by little, they grew, and now we're up to 8 sports total. There's just right around 1,300 kids in the academy. We have significant development has taken place just in the short amount of time that I've been here with a brand new school, campus center, which is very similar to a student union. We just built a brand new basketball arena that also is one side is a basketball arena, the other side is indoor tennis facilities. So it is. If you're ever in the area, I highly encourage you to stop by. It's a pretty impressive sports facility. It probably resembles something along the lines of Disney, just for athletes. I think if we had a few mascots running around in costume, it would be very, very similar to Disney World.
Well, Dan, I know you're a little under the weather. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. And I shake my head, man. I'm humbled by the opportunity to speak with professionals like yourself and kind of walk back down memory lane, obviously, and then hear about all of the new and exciting things you're a part of right now. Continued success, continued growth. Look forward to the next time we break bread together. Hopefully it won't be too soon.
Yep.
And
absolutely love.
And allow us to come back to you sometime if you would, all right?
Just let me know, or if anybody on staff that you'd like to talk to, be happy to. We've certainly got some high-end players this year on our national team, so if during the course of the season we're potential high-round picks, if you want to talk to the top head coach of that team, be more than happy to make those arrangements. All right?
Dan, I appreciate it. Have a great evening. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll be back with you in just a second, but right now, a little word from our sponsor. Hey, Will, we picked up another sponsor tonight.
All right, who is it?
Advanced Collision in Beltsville, Maryland. Serving cars, buses, fleets, RV, recreational vehicles, and emergency vehicles. They upfit in the Washington, D.C. and the Baltimore areas. Advanced Collision LLC excels at providing paint, dent repair, and auto body work services for your automobile. They use the best products available today for your automobile, and they only use certified, skilled, highly trained technicians backed by state-of-the-art equipment on your repair. And for a couple months, the Jungle Cat and his family kept those techs in business. They offer custom paint and design, professional body work, and repair services for all types of cars, trucks, buses, and recreational vehicles. So if you have a vehicle that needs repaired, do what the Jungle Cat does. Call 301-595-9377 to schedule an appointment. Advanced Collision, your best bet when it comes to automotive repair. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not too many times in your life that you get a chance to sit down with coaching royalty, but my next guest is just that. I've had the opportunity to meet him personally here in the last couple of years. We actually got started about the same time here in the CAA, but he comes to us from an unbelievable coaching background, and his experience is second to none. And when I heard he got the job at the College of Charleston, I was like, oh boy, as if we don't have enough to battle here in this crazy conference. Now I gotta go through the King of the South. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Chad Holbrook, the head baseball coach at the College of Charleston. Chad, how are you?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's always great to talk a little ball, talk a little baseball with you, and I feel honored that you called on me to participate in this show. And it's a great honor, and I hope we can. Hope I can get some ideas from you here in this conversation.
There you go. Well, I'll tell you what, it's an open-end show. I like to call it a baseball conversational show, where we just let the questions kind of take us where we want them to go. And if we run over our 20 minutes, we run over our 20 minutes. It's, so far listeners have said it can be a little long, but so far so good, But the one thing I do try to give our audience is a little bit of background about everybody that we talk to. And I've known you before you've ever known me because of your experience and where you've been and what you've done. I mean, your career speaks for itself, and it's just incredible. And obviously you come by it. It's in your blood, is it not? Your father was a collegiate basketball coach? Tell me.
I grew up in a gym. My dad was a basketball coach when I was a kid, he was at Gardner-Webb College, and he had some great teams there. And then as I became, still a kid, and when I was in second grade, we moved to Greenville, South Carolina, and he became the head basketball coach at Furman. So all I've really known my whole life is I've been around a dad that's all he did, and he was a coach, and I got to see him relate to his players and coach his teams, and stand beside him through all the wins and losses, and you got to see the toll it took on him. And he actually tried to encourage me not to go into coaching, because I think my dad had 3 or 4 heart attacks, and a lot of it was stress induced from the rigors of the coaching profession. And but yet I just couldn't say no to it. I was lucky to be asked. As soon as I finished my playing career at North Carolina, I was lucky to be asked to be an assistant coach under Mike Roberts. And Mike gave me my start in coaching baseball at the University of North Carolina, and I've been doing it ever since. I've been awfully blessed.
Well, that playing career at North Carolina should be discussed just a tick. I mean, you made the All-ACC second team. You were all-tourney selection in the regional in 1993, and you're second all-time in the North Carolina annals for triples and stolen bases. So there had to be a little bit of talent there, big guy.
It was a long time ago. I was about 50 pounds lighter, and had some hair on my head, and I was a little left-handed. It was back in the days of small ball. It's not so popular these days, but I could put it on the ground and run a little bit. And stole my fair share of bases, and it was a really, really cool thing coaching at North Carolina. But I don't know if it's any cooler than being able to watch, listen. Yesterday, man, we got to talk about this. Yesterday, my kid Reese, who battled cancer in his own right as a 2-year-old, got his first collegiate start at North Carolina, and actually hit a triple and played really well. And for me to sit here and know that he's standing in the same batter's box that I stand in, and playing in the same outfield that I played in, and getting an opportunity to go to the same school that I got to go to, it was kind of a surreal moment for me. I'm still numb about it, to be quite honest with you, and because I know a little bit about what he went through, and kind of had a proud dad moment yesterday. Having a kid get to go to the same school and play for the same team that I did.
Oh my gosh, that was coming later. You've got 2 sons. You have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old?
Yeah, I got 2 boys. They love to play, and they got work to do, and they're not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination, but they do love to play, and they got great personalities about them. And Reese is at North Carolina, and he'll play the outfield there for hopefully the next 4 years, and hopefully he can make his mark there. And then my other son's a senior in high school, and he's going to go play for Tim Corbin at Vanderbilt next year. Well,
that's it looks like the talent gene has kind of left you and went right into them. So congratulations on both of those accomplishments. I'm sorry I had lost track where they were going and what they were doing, but that's phenomenal. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool yesterday. I probably got off topic a little bit through your curveball, but
oh no,
I can't really get it off my mind. The fact that he was born there. I was assistant in North Carolina when he was born. He was treated for cancer there, and and kind of a funny story off the beaten path, but the chemotherapy drugs that he took damaged the nerves in his eyes as a kid, and he couldn't follow moving objects. And so, I mean, literally as 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, I couldn't play catch with him because the ball just hit him in the head. He could not, the nerve damage was so bad. And we thought he was just going to have to play golf, if anything. And he actually got cut. How about this? He got cut from his middle school team. Couldn't even play good enough to make his middle school team. And then, a couple of years later, was one of the top recruits in the country, and now playing as a true freshman at North Carolina. So it's an incredible story.
Was that related to some type of eye surgery operation, or just corrected vision with glass?
Just he had leukemia, and it's the chemotherapy drugs that he took over the course of 3.5 years. Just those drugs they're a tough deal. It's a tough deal. I mean, it's essentially poison. And he took pills every single day for 3.5 years, and got lots of tough drugs injected into his spinal cord, and so just over the course of time, it was not an eye surgery. It was just a side effect of the chemotherapy drugs he took.
Wow. Well, we're glad that he's still with us, and look at him now. That's just fantastic stuff. I have to think that UNC is on the schedule, right?
No, we can't. I can't play. I can't do that. I cannot. We've talked about it and why it would be kind of cool, but I could not. I was a mess yesterday trying to coach my own team, knowing that he was playing his first college game or starting his first college game, and it was talking about a lesson in concentration and learning how to focus on a task at hand when something else is going on pretty important in your life too. That was a challenge for me, but the last thing I could do was see him in another dugout. Have to try to get him out. That'd be a tough chore for me. I know Mike Bianco did it at Ole Miss. He said it was the worst thing of his life. Having to try to get his kid out when he was playing at LSU and coach was coaching at Ole Miss. It's not something I want to do.
I talked to him about that while we were recruiting this past fall down in Florida, and I said, "What was that? I mean, you're watching your son here, and it was great to see him." And then I did mention, I said, "What was it like?" And he goes, "The toughest thing I ever had to do in my life." He goes, how can you pull for somebody and at the same time, want to get him out, but really want the guy to be successful, And I said,
that's not something I want to do, and I hope I don't have to do that.
I hear you. Well, I hope that you get a chance to go see him play. I know that, that was, I took a 10-year sabbatical. You probably don't know this from coaching, from 98 to 2008. And I did it so I could watch my kids play. And because you're right, you're committed just like your father was. And I hope I'm not speaking for you, but it looks like you took the commitment part of this career and hook, line, and sinker. You're done. You're in. So, and it's been such a part of your life, and to now have your children involved in it, that's pretty cool too. But I hope you get the chance to go see them play.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple midweek games, and sometimes we play on Tuesday and they play Wednesday, or sometimes we'll play Wednesday and they'll play Tuesday. So there might be a midweek game here or there that I get to drive up there really quick and watch him play. And whether he's playing or not, that's not going to be the important thing. If I get to see him run around on that field and take batting practice and in that uniform, that'll be a cool experience for me.
Oh, I bet. So after playing, you went right into coaching. I mean, within like the next year, right? You jumped right out of playing into coaching at UNC?
Yeah, I didn't miss a year. I was lucky that there was a position open on that staff, and and I played there for 4 years, and I think Coach Roberts knew that coaching was in my blood, so to speak, and he knew me very well as a player, and he thought I could be a decent recruiter. So he immediately took a young guy, 23 years old, and gave me the keys to go recruit to the University of North Carolina. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what I was doing, but I tried hard, and we were lucky to get some pretty good players, and I had a lot of fun. I think close to 14, 15 seasons as a coach at North Carolina, and lucky to go to 3 trips to the College World Series. We went 3 in a row my last 3 years at North Carolina. We went to the College World Series and played the national championship game 2 of those 3 years. And, it was an incredible experience, and got to coach some incredible kids, incredible players there. It was quite an experience.
Absolutely. And then based off of that success, probably is what led the Hall of Famer Ray Tanner to give you a call, correct?
Yeah, I think he was in between coaches, and, Coach Tanner was always one that, I kind of always respected a great deal. We had a great friendship. Always admired his teams when he was at NC State and I was coaching in North Carolina. And then he went to South Carolina, and, the opportunity came to coach there. And, my wife and her family is from Columbia, South Carolina. And at that point in time, my son Reese was just coming off of some treatment, the cancer treatment, and I just felt like it was a decision that made sense to go to South Carolina to work for Coach Tanner and to make sure Reese and my wife, got to be around family as we were going through a difficult time. So it just seemed to make sense, and had a lot of fun in South Carolina and Columbia as well.
Well, and for those that don't know, I'm speaking about Ray Tanner, who was very successful at North Carolina State, but then took the Gamecock program to back-to-back national championship games and won both of them in 2011, 2012, of which Coach Holbrook was a part of. What was that feeling like? Obviously, I went to 3 College World Series, didn't win it, so I want to get your input.
Well, it was actually, 2000 is 10 and 11. We went in 12 and lost to Arizona. We went 3 years in a row at South Carolina. 2010 was the year, Matt, we lost the first game in the College World Series to Oklahoma. And usually when you lose the first game in the College World Series, that mountain's that's too high to climb, to get back in that thing. And as you well know, it was, we kind of got hot after that Oklahoma. We lost Oklahoma in the first round and turned around the next day and had to play the number 1 seed in the country, Arizona State, and maybe played our best game of the year that year and against them. Just had a phenomenal game and then got hot, and had to beat Clemson twice, and we did that, South Carolina Clemson rivalry runs deep, so to be able to beat them twice in Omaha was an incredible accomplishment. And then we drew UCLA in the finals, and that was the Trevor Bauer, Garrett Cole UCLA teams, and it was a tough chore, a tough ask for us, but we were a gritty bunch, and we found a way to get it done. I still remember, as a coach, you always dream of going to the College World Series, and I don't know if the dream was even. I never had the dream of winning it because I almost thought the task was too large, or it was too impossible. I mean, think about all the great coaches and the legendary coaches that have been and never won. Mike Martin comes to mind, probably one of the best coaches that our game has ever known. And I think he's been to the College World Series 16, 17, 18 times, something like that, and never won it. And so I never even really dreamed of being able to win the thing or being a part of a team that won it. But I can tell you, it's a surreal feeling standing in the third base coaching box and having a base runner on third base, and you're 90 feet away from a national championship. And you have at that time a little hitter named Whit Merrifield in the batter's box, and he was brought up and raised by a great baseball man himself, Bill Merrifield, and we were 90 feet away. And I remember saying, if anybody can get Scott Wingo, who was a pretty good player in his own right, if anybody could get Scott Wingo home 90 feet, it would be Whit Merrifield. He was probably built for this situation. And lo and behold, he had an incredible at bat and laced the ball down the right field line to score Scott Wingo. And I got to experience something that is still with me to this day. I mean, I still feel it every now and again. And a day doesn't go by where I don't really think about it either. It's just an incredible feeling, and it still resonates.
Oh, I can only imagine. And then to do it again, right?
Yeah, and then the next year we went, one of the cool things about those teams is we were the last team to win it in Rosenblatt Stadium, and we were the first team to win it in TD Ameritrade. So that's kind of cool. We went back to back, and that 2011 team was just, it was almost like, we were almost to a point of being arrogant and felt like it was supposed to happen. It almost, I don't know really how to explain it, but there was never any pressure in 2011. We'd already won it, and we thought we were just entitled to win it again. I mean, our players did, not our coaches. We kind of, you don't want to ever get, turn the baseball gods against you, but it seemed like they just had a sense of arrogance and confidence, and I probably should use the word confidence. It was so strong, it just felt like they were going to win it again. And I went through the whole season that way. And I will tell you a great coaching story that happened in between those two national championships. Is we had won the national championship in 2010, and the next day we're flying home. And obviously there was no sleep the night before. I mean, we just got out of the shower and put new clothes on and got on the bus and was heading home and headed to the airport. And Coach Tanner told the bus driver drive over to where the TD Ameritrade was under construction, and we didn't know where we were going. We just knew it wasn't in the direction of the airport, and the bus pulled over there to the big construction site, and you could see into the stadium barely, and he stood up in front of that bus, and he goes, I know we're all on a euphoric high from having won the national championship last night in Rosenblatt Stadium. He goes, but look at that place right there. We're going to win it there next year. And then we went on to the airport, and that was some foresight on his part to put that in our players' heads. Literally less than 24 hours, probably 10 to 12 hours after we had just won it the night before, and that's a memory that still remains with me as well.
Wow, that's worth the price of admission, Chad. Thanks for sharing that. For those of you that are listening, that had to give you chills, if not goosebumps, because I'm sitting here just visualizing that bus, and God knows that you and I have been on a few buses, so it's not hard to visualize that. But for those that haven't been on it, TD Ameritrade is an unbelievable baseball. What word would be a good word for that? I mean,
It's our Mecca.
It's our Mecca, yeah. And I mean, to go out at Rosenblatt, which I know, and then to go to TD Ameritrade and win it the first year in that place, that shrine is just incredible, because it built for college baseball, and it is, for those of you that don't know, because we really haven't talked Omaha on this program yet, and that's where it all culminates. That's where everything ends there, and the champion for NCAA Division I is crowned in Omaha, Nebraska at TD Ameritrade Park, and to win it, the first one there. Yeah, I mean, nobody can ever take that away from you. It's just one of those things. And then from there, Chad, speak to us. You went, Ray took the athletic director's position at South Carolina, and you were named the head baseball coach at USC, South Carolina. And what was that like?
Well, it was a great experience. The only tough part of it, we were coming off 3 straight trips to the College World Series, and while that was so euphoric and good at the same time for a first-time head coach, that was also a little bit of a curse. It was a tough act to follow, and the expectations were really high there, obviously, at that time, and we just walked into a brand new stadium, Founders Park in Columbia, which is one of the nicer college baseball facilities in the country, and we had some really good teams. My first year, we went to a super regional. We lost to the number 1 seed in the country, my alma mater, North Carolina, that year in a gut-wrenching Game 3 super regional in Chapel Hill, and then we went to the regional final, I believe, the next year. Then we had a tough year here or there, and then we won the SEC East. We won 40 games a year. I'm really proud of my time there as a head coach. I mean, I coached there 5 years and won 200 games. Went to Super Regional in 2013, and we hosted a Super Regional in 2017. Went 2 Super Regionals, and we lost to hot teams and really, really good teams, and we couldn't quite get back to Omaha. The expectations were so high at that time, and we had some tough breaks. We lost some really good players to injury, and the draft bit us once or twice, and and it was a bit toxic a little bit, at the end of my head coaching career at South Carolina for whatever reason. It was just, but I love my time there. I love the kids there. I love my experience there. And while we won 40 games a year, at that point in time, it wasn't enough. And I had to put my big boy pants on and understand, the nature of the beast, so to speak. And I was awfully lucky to get this opportunity at the College of Charleston, which is a place where I want to finish my career. I love this city. I think it's the coolest place in the world to live. I think that we have a really, really cool school. I mean, it's a gym, and I'm having a blast. So, it's in a funny way, when I love my experience as head coach at South Carolina, it taught me, coming to college at Charleston has taught me how to love the game again and how to love our profession again. And how to love the relationships again. Because I made my fair share of mistakes at South Carolina. I wasn't perfect by any stretch. I felt like we won some games and we won some big games, but we also lost some big games. And I know the deal. But proud of my experience there. I'm proud of what we did there. But for some reason, it's a God thing. He took me through a very, very difficult time professionally as a head coach there, and now has placed me in a spot where I kind of get to pinch myself every day and say, oh, this is why coaching is fun. This is why we love it. This is what's so awesome about it. And I couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity that I have here.
Well, and I'm very thankful that you're part of our conference now, because we all have learned a significant amount from you and your baseball coaching wisdom in the short time that we've all been together. So I couldn't be more proud to call you friend and associate. And thanks for sharing that. We had Rob Cooper on earlier, and he mentioned to me and our listening audience that, pretty high profile program, Penn State. He too made some mistakes, and Penn State's given him a couple chances, extra chances, second chances, whatever you want to call it. And now he has kind of reverted back to exactly what you said. How to get back in and just love the game and love the people that you're around and love on your kids and, develop that relationship. And sometimes, man, we forget that, we really do.
And it's the one thing I learned, and I think this runs true for a lot of high school coaches, college coaches, Division III, Division II, Division I. The name on the front of the jersey when you love the coach is very... It's not as, I hope you understand what I'm saying here. That's not the important thing. It is in regards to who you're representing. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of importance in the name on the front. But where you're coaching doesn't dictate the enjoyment that you're going to have. And that's what I learned. People say, well, you're at a Power 5 school, you're making this amount of money, you're getting an opportunity to go to Omaha, you're playing in the nicest stadium in the country, you're living in a 6,000 square foot house, you got all the bells and whistles, you got people patting you on the shoulder all the time. At the end of the day, you don't coach for those reasons. You get into coaching because you love the journey, you love the relationships, you love the sport, you love the interaction. You love helping young people achieve a dream. But when you look back on it, you look at your players, and it's easy to forget where you were coaching. It's easy to forget the team you were coaching for, because those other things as a coach trumps where you were coaching, to me. For example, you would think, based on the amount of money that I made when I was at South Carolina, or the opportunity of coaching in the SEC, that would equate to the most incredible experience ever. And while it was an incredible experience, nothing has been like the experience that I've been able to have here coaching at the College of Charleston. So, the level, I guess I should say, the level doesn't dictate your enjoyment, and I think that's why you see so many great coaches. There's some high school coaches that can coach circles around me. There's Division III coaches that can coach circles around me. The level doesn't dictate the enjoyment or the success that you have. And I think I learned that through experience and wisdom of being at two different places as a head coach. And it's taught me some valuable lessons.
And I can't thank you enough for sharing that, because you're right. People stand back and they look at us and they only can't imagine what it's like. And the one thing that people don't understand, I was a part of it as a player. I haven't been able to coach it at the level you were. That there's so many other things that compete for your time that you sometimes get caught up in that. And you forget why you're even in it, So when you take that,
that was the mistake I made at South Carolina. Is there's no doubt I did a poor job of allowing outside things take away from what I was really there to do. And there's so many functions. You're asked to speak at so many places. You're asked to talk to this person or speak at this clinic or speak to this alumni group or go to this Gamecock Club meeting at the time. Or it's just one request after another. And you don't want to tell people no, so you do about all of them. And I sometimes forgot, hey, what's the real task here? And you better not forget about those players on the field. And yeah, that was a valuable lesson that I learned too, because when you're a coach and you're pulled at different strings, I was a little slow to tap myself on the shoulder and say, hey, this is what you love to do. You better get back to doing that. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head.
Well, and I've been there. So, every now and then I have to do my own gut check, that says, what are you doing? And because I don't say no. I've been one of those guys where this is something I've always wanted to be. And you're right. And I think of Tony Vittorio, who was the coach at Dayton University. And I called him one day and I said, man, I've got this opportunity to go down to coach at Division II. And we were having a little offensive success where I was at. And he says, sounds like you're a little hesitant to make that leap, take that leap. And I said, yeah, man, if I get down to Division II, would I ever get back to Division I? And he said, the Italian in me tells me that if I could come through this phone right now, I'd box your ears. And I said, why? And he said, man, this ain't about you. This is about your kids, And he told me some other various things I can't say on the radio or on a podcast, or maybe I could, but I'm going to shield the listening audience. But that reminder rings true in my mind, my brain all the time, man. Without the kids, we don't have a job, and they've got to be the first priority to everything that we do. And as long as I keep my eye on that prize, it sure does make me a better judge of time. And there's 24 hours in a day. If you budget right, you can get a lot of stuff done. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt. And, I was, as a young coach, I was always, we have to make tough decisions. All coaches do. And, sometimes you have to tell a kid, you have to break a kid's heart, or you have to, there'll be times where you make a kid's day and you make a kid's life, and there'll be a time where you have to have a conversation that breaks a kid's heart. And, fatherhood has taught me that no matter what kid you're talking to, no matter what kid you're coaching, no matter what kid you're trying to help, it's somebody's son. And I'd make sure that I would want, being a father is that, I'm this tough conversation I got to have with this kid, but I can only have it. I hope that my kid's coach is going to handle it the right way, and that feeling of just reminding, hey, this is some kid's son. This kid is someone's son, and he's got a mom and dad sitting on the edge of their chair waiting to see what their coach says after this meeting. That rings true with me daily, and I mean that's just because we're in a tough spot. We can't make everybody's day, but we can treat everybody the right way, or at least we can treat everybody the way we treat our own. And that's kind of the best advice I can give for a young coach that may be listening today is, no matter what conversation that you have to have with a young man, whether it's hard or whether you're ripping the kid's heart out or whether the kid's messed up, that kid is loved by a mom and a dad somewhere, and they're anxiously waiting to hear the outcome of this meeting. So you make sure you better handle it the right way. And being a dad's taught me that.
It's funny you say that. I flew back last night on a plane with my team from Miami, and my starting catcher told me the story about an 11-year-old coach telling him that he'd never play at any level, much less the big level, and I'm like, how can an 11-year-old coach have any idea what this kid that's playing for him is going to do and or accomplish. And, I always tell my players, I said, look, fellas, I'm a dad first. I'm a coach second. I've got one wish. If I'm not your first phone call when you're in trouble, I damn better be your second, and I think getting back into it, Chad, and maybe, I can feel that passion in your voice, which is phenomenal. And all I want my players, I'll judge my success on this. Would my players take a bullet for me? Because I'm going to take a bullet for them, and if we're in the same foxhole, I'm in a good space, real good space,
No doubt. And there's so much comfort in that. And that's one of the neat things about coaching, and we've all learned. I'm 51 years old, and you've been around the block a time or two as well. And but we learn every day. And that's the beautiful thing about coaching in baseball is we don't know it all, and those that think they do, those are the ones that me and you always make fun of. Probably, it's this game and these relationships, and these kids will teach you something new every single day if you have an open mind to it. And I think that's why we're so lucky and so blessed to be able to call ourselves a coach or be able to be in this profession.
A coach influences more people in 1 year than the average person does in their lifetime. Wise man.
Quote. I mean, I think Billy Graham maybe said that.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's true. And I've made a few speeches over the course of time, and it's kind of it's really, I mean, it's a powerful, very powerful position, and you can, like you just said. I mean, a lot of times when a kid gets in trouble, their first call is to their coach. Or where does a kid go in high school the first time he gets his report card and has a bad grade? He runs to his coach. I mean, it's amazing, the power. We want to say, hey, you're going to run to mom or you're going to run to mom or dad first. But more often than not, that relationship between player and coach is so strong. A lot of times that's the first call that young man makes. And that's why we hold such a high responsibility for the way we handle our own kids and our own selves. And our responsibility is much greater than wins and losses.
Big fella, I have got a smile on my face from ear to ear, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day. See what I mean? We've blown 20 minutes out, and I'm firing Will from co-host. I'm hiring you. The pay's the same, 0, and but
that's all right. And me and you both probably taking a job or two in coaching for that same amount of money, so that's all right.
That's a fact, Jack. That's right. So we will. I'll tell you what. This is just going to be a single show down the road. I'm not going to try to couple you with anything else because you've shared with us your heart and your soul and your outlook, and I can't thank you enough. I mean, that's what this is about from my perspective, getting an opportunity to meet people, go deeper into their life. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we'll close.
All right.
What's Chad Holbrook tell his 21-year-old self now?
Wow. You're not as good as you think you are. And you don't know as much as you think you do. You better wake up tomorrow morning with your eyes wide open. And the good Lord, and remember that the good Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. And you should listen a lot more than you talk. And if you do that, you'll learn a lot more each and every day. But you got to check your ego at the door. And because you're not as good as you think you are at that age, and you don't know as much as you think you do. And if you have an open mind of learning each and every day and learning from the people that have been down the road before you or that have paved the road for you, you might have a lot better chance of being a better version or the best version of yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Chad Holbrook, head baseball coach, College of Charleston. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your life with us.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt. I look forward to seeing you in several weeks, and we'll be up in Towson soon, and look forward to that. Maybe we can go grab some dinner. And anytime you need a guest, we need to talk, chat about baseball or coaching, don't hesitate to call me back.
Crab is on me, my man. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, Will, that wraps up another fine episode. And I'll tell you what, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. It sure was a blast for he and I to sit through those conversations with two outstanding coaches and, of course, Michael detailing his energy source communication. Stay with us. Next week, we bring in three special guests. Tony Baldwin, University of Georgia softball coach, Sean Stifler, the head baseball coach at Virginia Commonwealth, and Steve Farley, former head coach at Butler University. All three tried and true and tested in the art war of coaching. So certainly want you guys to think about tuning back in next week also, and I'll give you a little update of what happened down at Greensboro and at GW. Folks, it's always a blast to share with you what goes on here at Towson University. I know for Will and myself, we couldn't do it without you. Thanks for adding the numbers. We seem to be growing a little bit. That's kind of cool, considering we're what we would call novice and nobodies. We're having fun with this. We hope you guys are too. Remember, be the change you want to see in the world, fellas. And right now, this world needs some changing, don't you think? Come on, we can be a little bit nicer to each other. Think good, be good, do good. All y'all, take care. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good week.
Do you have any questions you wish for us to discuss? Anything you want to talk about? Feel free to email us at mtyner@towson.edu. That's mtyner@towson.edu or wprich1@students.towson.edu. That's WPRICH1@students.towson.edu.